Alright, and there goes my pug. He thinks the noise the camera makes when I turn it on is a doorbell, so he is over there barking at the backyard. That's great. Okay. We did all the testing on this. We're going to go ahead and talk about it. I know there were some different questions about the testing, how I sharpen it. I sharpened this on a KME. I sharpened it up to 1500 grit. I use a KME because I have arthritis in my hands and I have hand tremors, which makes it, on anything smaller than about 4.5 inch knife, I cannot do freehand anymore. I mean, I can, it just doesn't look pretty. It gets sharp, but you know, I don't want it to look horrible. So I've been using the KME for a while now. Like I said, I sharpen up to 1500 grit. I make all my own strops. I have diamond compound, 6 micron, 3 micron, 1 micron. I've done a bunch of experimenting with the diamond compounds on the strops, and I found that an empty priority mail video box, the one you usually send a knife in when you send it, I don't know if it has a little bit of give to it, a little bit of hollowness. For me, that's what works for me. That's how I strop everything I do. Like I said, 5 passes each side on 6 micron, 5 passes each side on 3 micron, 5 passes on each side on 1 micron. Hold on, guys, I'll be right back so my pug stops barking. Okay. So that's how I strop. This particular knife, the apex didn't start to come up really good. Like the 4th time I sharpened it, it was a little bit promising, but the 5th and 6th time is where it really came up good. I don't intentionally do it all the time, but I do check a lot of my knives to see whether or not they'll whittle a hair. Like I said in the copper matrix video, I don't know if I'll post this one first or that one. I've tried to catch it on camera. I don't know how people catch it on camera. I'm having a difficult time doing that. So I don't have the footage. If you don't believe that my edge whittled the hair, that I'm fine with that, because you're not going to believe the results of my test anyway. So obviously from the testing, this knife had a burnt edge. These production knives, and I mean, I really can't say for sure about anywhere, but we have no idea who's sharpening these in China. You know, and I'm not saying that it only happens in China. Don't get me wrong on that. But for all we know, they could have just hired somebody and gave them knives and said, here you go, put an edge on them. This is how you do it, and cut them loose. And I did forget to add, this is at 18 degrees per side. 18 was the factory bevel. I sharpened quite a few at the same time and found they were all around 18. So for my testing, I put them all at 18, and we will talk about that in a minute too. So they're doing these on a belt. Usually they're moving at a pretty good speed. I can't say what speed. I mean, unless I was there to actually know, I have no idea. But this knife is very thin behind the edge. Not only that, your apex is ridiculously thin. like Steve says, you're making a triangle. So the pointier your triangle is on the apex here, the sharper your knife's going to be. Also though, when someone's sharpening it on a belt, that is also going to have that much more chance to heat up the steel. Somebody goes a little bit too slow. That's why you see some budget knives. I've seen it myself, where one blade is a little bit smaller than another. Kenny at In the Pocket has a 940 that you can visually see between his S30V and his 20CV 940, that somebody ground the shit out of that blade on the S30V. It is visibly smaller than the other one. So much so that at the same, sharpened at the same edge angle, I mean, just side by side, you can put them together and you can tell that the bevel on the S30V is bigger. That's one where I don't know if somebody was learning to sharpen that day, but that took way too much metal off that thing. So you get a burn edge, you have fatigued steel. Fatigued steel, just like when you use a knife a lot and it gets dull, you've got to get rid of that fatigued steel in order to get a good edge on there that's going to perform in any kind of way. The overall results for this. The difference between the first edge and the last edge, and bear in mind the difference between the 5th and 6th edge, why we stopped, was it was 2%. We hit 2%. That is... I do a lot of cars, engines. I've been building cars since I was 17. When you put a car on a chassis dyno, anything within, I mean, the automobile industry uses much lower numbers as far as what's a wash, but 2%, when you put a car on a chassis dyno, 2% is a wash. That's, you know, if you put a different set of mufflers on a car, let's say, and you run it, and you get a 2% horsepower gain, that's considered no gain. You essentially got no gain. So 2% no gain. I did do a polished edge on this. It is a little harder to see, but you can kind of see a little bit of reflection in it. 3000 grit. I will not be posting that test. I won't be posting it because it was a wash. This did no better on fine edge, and it actually lost. It would have been a negative percent where if we were counting every last percent on the working edge. So this is as good as it's going to get. 90 feet fine edge, almost 101 feet working edge. I have no problem with that. It goes right in line with some other D2 I've done that I have yet to post for you guys. I'm calling it good. I have no problem with this, how it performs. Could it perform better? Absolutely. You know, there's all kinds of tests out there from people who tested custom heat treats on steels, and they do way better. But we're talking about a production folder under $50. So I'm perfectly fine with that, especially when it is within striking distance of what Steve got on his Spyderco S30V military. I'm not upset with it at all. This will be going to Kurt for an HRC test and a scan. I have no reason to not believe it's D2, like I said. I am curious about the HRC. I will also be sending the copper matrix, which I'm almost done with, and I'm going to send a few others to see. Like Steve said, I am pretty sure, just like he is, that HRC is directly going to correlate with how some of these cut. Now, I said I'd get back to 18 degrees per side. Why am I getting back to 18 degrees per side? Well, because Steve and I were talking today, and I've started realizing over the past couple days I picked 18 degrees per side or 36 inclusive because that's what a lot of these were when I sharpened them up. When I originally sharpened these, it was last Thursday and Friday, and I hadn't planned on testing these particular knives at that point. What it did tell me, though, is I did a cut jack mini, and I also did a full-size cut jack this morning. The results I got with a 1500 grit, 18 degree per side edge are within 8% or less on both knives of what Steve got on the cut jack mini that he tested. That tells me a few things. And Steve and I were talking about this. Variables that you hear some people talk about do not matter nearly as much as you might read and think. Otherwise, we wouldn't all be getting similar results. Tom from Tom Hosang Outdoors, he's done his own testing. I don't know if he's talked to Steve. I know him and I haven't talked to him at all outside of some comments on his videos. All three of us are getting very similar results on some of the same steels from different companies. I know the cardboard I use comes from paper towel boxes, all the same kind, all the time. It's always the same cardboard. Is it exactly the same? I'm sure there's some variable in it. I can tell cutting some that some are a little bit dirtier than others. But Steve uses a different cardboard. Tom uses a different cardboard. Yet we're still getting results within a few percent of each other. The variables do not matter as much as you think they do. If you think they do, please, and I've told people this before, the more people that test, the better it is for all of us. You have a camera, grab some free cardboard, all the same type, get a knife, sharpen it, turn your camera on, run a test. I'd love to see it. I'd definitely watch it. And I bet that if you're using a production folder, you're going to get similar results to a lot of people that have tested before. So I'm not worried about variables. The edge finish, now don't get me wrong, on some steels, yes. Edge finish, edge angle, all that stuff matters. But when we're testing production folders like this, if I was to take this from 18 to 15 degrees per side, and I may do it when it comes back from Kurt, I don't think the difference is going to be enough to matter. I have the results written down. I'll save them. After I send it, I'll resharpen it to 15 per side, and we'll go ahead and test it and see what happens. Now, I know Pete, Cedric and Ada has done, he's done tons of tests. I don't find anything wrong with this test. But I don't know how many times he may have sharpened some of his knives, and I'm not questioning what he does. I love what he does. I love the results. It gives you an idea on steels, but I am going to do that also. I will get some rope, and I will break out a few different steels just to show not all these steels are designed to do the same thing. That's why when Pete's cutting rope, a knife that may do better on cardboard does not necessarily do better than another steel when you change to cutting rope. Just like the same would happen if you cut plastics. Different ones are made for different things. Different steels will put up with more abuse than other ones will. What do we get out of this? Burnt edges are way more common than you think. Get a few sharpenings on there before you decide a knife's junk. I've also got some AUS 8 coming up. And some other things. I also have some, and I'm curious to see, some Italian M390 that I am going to test here hopefully this week. And see, because it seems like a lot of the Italian M390 seems to do better than what we're seeing out of China and from the US. Also, I'm going to do, no, I lost it now. God, I don't even, sorry guys, I lost it, it's gone. That's this knife. Get your fatigue burnt steel off before you assess a knife. The copper matrix. Another one. Definitely a burn edge on this. I mean, the edge on this was so jacked up. And I do have some other tests. I have doubles of quite a few knives. Some have been sharpened and used a lot. Others have not been sharpened at all. We're going to go ahead and compare those also to see what the difference is. If there's anything you want to see, if there's any questions you still have, post them down below. If you want to direct message me or something, my email's in some of the videos. Just search Outpost76 on Instagram. You can direct message me there. You know, I mean, let me know. You have something you want me to test that I don't have? I'll be happy to test it too. You want to see something tested that I have? Let me know. I'll go ahead and test that also. But that's all I got for right now. As always, I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.